Welcome to Tales of Mystara, a solo Dungeons & Dragons podcast played using 1980s D&D rules as seen in Stranger Things and also known as the BECMI rules. So, this podcast went on an unexplained hiatus over a year ago. Reason being, I'd bitten off more than I can chew. If you watch my YouTube content over at Solo Dungeon Crawler, you'll have seen I am still actively participating in stuff. But this particular pursuit fell on the wayside. But not to worry, because I'm bringing it back. However, there will be some much needed changes. Up until now, I've been creating a kind of narrative audio drama, which I guess is a trussed-up campaign report. It takes a lot of effort to put together, and we have the likes of Tale of the Manticore, Legend of the Bones, The Iron Realm, and The Lone Adventurer, just to name a few. These are all great podcasts with a lot of production effort put into them. The work ethic is consistent, and I just can't cut it. I take my hat off to these creators. So if you haven't heard all of them, then make sure you do. I, on the other hand, am inconsistent with my output, and as a solo gamer who likes to experiment with different systems, my playtime was heavily reduced by the amount of time I spent trying to add music and sound effects. You have other great podcasts like Errant Adventures and Subclass Act, which are a little more free-flowing, which also inspires me greatly. With these, you feel at the centre of the game as it's unfolding, and there is some great discussion going on regarding the systems they use. So listen to these podcasts if you have not. Then there's the OSR community that discusses mechanics, deep dives into specific topics, Bandit's Keep, Confessions of a Wee Timorous Bushi, Hindsightless, Nerds RPG Variety Cast, The Dungeon Master's Handbook, and The Whispering GM. And there are many, many more, all great podcasters for gaining insight into how the OSR ticks. So check those out as well. So regarding Tales of Mystara, I'm feeling inspired to continue, but in a different way. I still want to get across the narrative as my campaign story unfolds, but I also want to get content out faster, so I can keep my output more in line with my progress as I game in real time. And I want to discuss rules, mechanics, various opinions on various topics related to D&D, playing solo, using BECMI rules, and so on. To do this, I need to drastically change my approach. So that's what I'm going to do. So consider this an experiment, which will definitely not be right first time, but hopefully we will get there in the end. So, how am I going to approach this podcast? You'll have to listen and find out. So first, seeing as it's been a year, I think a recap is in order. But before I dive into that, for some context, this adventure, which I've been playing through on the previous 3 episodes is called The Palace of Evendur, and is an adventure I pre-wrote, but originally for 5th edition. It originally had some flaws, but I felt inspired to run it solo to improve it and convert it to BECMI at the same time. I'm thinking about sticking the whole thing up on the DM's Guild once I am through improving it. So look out for that. The original version is on there already, but as I said, it has some flaws. The idea of playing through this adventure was not just to improve the adventure, but also to experiment further with playing pre-written adventures solo, so I can improve my approach to this sort of thing. So along the way, we can look at some of the techniques I use in more detail. But first, let's recap the story so far. So, Yolanda Vorloy and Ilyena Petreos, a human fighter and a human rogue respectively, undertook a 21-day journey to deliver news of the death of magic user Fyodor Ivanos to his homestead. Along the way they acquired supplies and a mule named Bella. Upon arriving at the homestead, they were warmly received by Cathbad, a magic user and Fyodor's close friend. Cathbad invited them to a small hamlet called Alabast, where they visited a tavern known as the Sleeping Tankard. In the tavern, they encountered a drunken storyteller named Tacklin Merryborn, who shared a tale about the Palace of Evendur, an abandoned and overgrown palace near the Enchanted Forest. Tacklin offered them a reward of 30 gold pieces to explore the palace and uncover its purpose. After deliberation, Ilyena, Yolanda and Cathbad decided to verify the truth of Tacklin's story. Ilyena, who sought adventure and honour through the shearing ceremony, joined the expedition. Cathbad, desiring to experience Fyodor's adventurous life, decided to accompany them despite his old injury. The following morning, they set out north with a rough map provided by Tacklin. Their journey took them deep into Radleb Woods, and they eventually stumbled upon the dried-up riverbed of Korthas. Crossing an ancient moat bridge, they reached the grand entrance of Evendur's palace, a site surrounded by magical woods with encroaching creepers and towering walls adorned with intricate carvings. On the 5th day of Felmont, in the year AC 1000, in the mid-afternoon, the party stood before the majestic doors of the palace. Yolanda and Ilyena cautiously approached the ancient doors, with Yolanda searching for traps. Despite her efforts, she failed to notice anything unusual. As they drew closer, vines hanging in front of the door suddenly attacked Yolanda. She skillfully evaded the assault and responded by setting the vines on fire with a flask of oil. With the obstacle cleared, they entered the palace and found themselves in the entrance hall. Yolanda once again searched for traps, but found none. At the end of the hall, they discovered a slightly open door. Yolanda peered through the crack and glimpsed a grand throne room with a suit of armour seated upon the throne. The armour demanded a password, and after some contemplation, Cathbad deduced the answer to a riddle posed by the armour. In response, the crossed swords fell and the armour relinquished a key. While approaching the key, a possessed rug attacked Yolanda, but failed to smother her. They engaged in combat with the rug, eventually freeing Ilyena from its clutches. Sorry, it was Ilyena that the possessed rug attacked Yolanda, I think originally, but then it was Ilyena that ended up trapped by the rug. The battle concluded when they brought down a chandelier, pinning the rug to the ground. Continuing their exploration, they discovered a hidden trapdoor containing treasures. Deciphering the runes on the key, they identified a door marked with a half-moon symbol, but the key proved ineffective. Realizing they needed moonlight, they resolved to further explore the palace in search of treasure or magic items, starting with a door to the east. And as they tried to explore the east side, they had to overcome a magical wind that was blowing down the eastern corridor. This ended up being more difficult than it would have been because the wind blew the door off its hinges, so then the whole throne room was basically under the influence of this magical wind. So there was a lot of using ropes and crawling across the ground to sort of overcome this magical wind. So that's the recap out of the way. This brings us more or less up to date. The way I've been playing this adventure solo is through keeping a detailed record of the events in what I call my adventure journal. Very strict timekeeping, in my opinion, is what keeps a solo game of D&D together. It's kind of like the glue that holds the whole thing in place. Keeping accurate time is the foundation to which we can attach the procedures, and from the procedures arises situations. The situations give way to meaningful choices, and through these choices emerges the story. This, in a nutshell, is how I play, and through this approach we minimise the use of oracles, and we do not create scenes to play out either. The reason I don't play this way is because I consider it not to line up well with the OSR style of play. It definitely can if you prefer to play that way, but for me the approach, play style, philosophy if you like, of old school play can be wrapped up nicely in this little package of timekeeping, procedure, situation and choice. And from this emerges the story, which the solo player has less chance of influencing and is more likely to feel surprised by the outcomes. Regarding my adventure journal, my approach to journaling is tied to the timekeeping. The current turn and round number is recorded, and next to this the events which take place within the round. I organise the events into a description of the current situation, the actions the party will take, then I resolve the actions according to the rules, and finally, time is progressed and a new round or turn will begin. At the start of this new session, the party were on round 12 of turn 25. The adventure began at 3 PM, so the time at this point was just after 7 PM. So that's 4 hours into the adventure. So my approach now will be to go through the events as they unfolded. So I'm not doing this live, nor am I dramatising it so it gives you that impression. Instead, I'm going to talk through what happened in my gaming session, and along the way, I'll discuss the important points and how I approached them. That way, I can offer some value to other solo gamers who might want to try and approach things in a similar way. If you've been watching my YouTube series, The Castle of the Quest, I've been doing something very similar but with OD&D. if you haven't seen it and you'd like to check it out, my YouTube channel is Solo Dungeon Crawler, and the Castle of the Quest playlist should be up there in my uploaded videos. The party was standing at the main entrance inside the entrance hall of the Palace of Evendur. They were locked in and had 3 days to wait until they could use the mysterious key to unlock the door in the throne room. The party began searching for another way out. Cathbad turned to examine the east wall, which, like all others, was made of thick creepers. Yolanda closely examined the main door leading back outside. She ran her hands along its surface and around the edges for any sign of a hidden catch or the like. She rolled a d6 here, as this is essentially a check for secret doors. The result was a 1, so this is a success. The way I approach secret doors when playing a pre-written adventure is exactly as the rules tell us. A successful roll will result in a secret door if there is one within the area being searched. But if you as the DM already know it's there, wouldn't it be cheating letting the character automatically roll for it? Well, no, because I have a workaround to avoid this, and it's quite simple really. If there is a secret door nearby, then make a roll against wisdom for each character, and anybody who succeeds discovers a clue, whether this be a draft, some inconsistency in the stonework, a hollow spot. It's down to the imagination and is purely flavour. But on a success, this clue will allow a character to check using the 1d6 roll. With a momentary click, the door that Yolanda was searching suddenly loosed upon its hinges once more, and they met the damp summer air of the forest outside once again. The day was still hot and should not have darkened for several hours, but here it was as if the woods called in the night early, operating under their own will or some wild magic yet to be understood. The party travelled back to Alabast to await the half moon. At their heavily encumbered pace, their progress was very slow. However, they couldn't risk making camp as they needed to have ample time to return before the half moon. A check for nighttime wandering monsters was made. They journeyed through the night uninterrupted. Countless hours passed as they tried to navigate the heavy, strange woods, burning torches as they went. But Tacklin's map was truly a gift from the immortals, and with it, they finally managed to reach Alabast by sunrise of the next morning, after a long, weary night of travel. They burned through 6 of Ilyena's torches as they passed through the heaviest parts of the wood. The party were very confused as they did not recall their initial journey to the palace being so long as this return journey, but they put the matter down to poor visibility and less than efficient navigation of the mysterious wood. It was the morning of Nightdane 6, Felmont, in the year AC 1000. The party tracked down a modest inn called the Swan and Hammer, where they managed to secure lodgings for 5 silver pieces per night, allowing them to rest and recover for 1 full day, which would bring them to Solidane 7. They now had 1 day to attend to any further business in Alabast, return to their lodgings, and then journey back to the ruined palace to catch the half moon. As the party needed to offload some weight, and there was nowhere in the village to deposit their coins safely, they felt they had no choice but to bury it in the forest on the edge of town, and record its location on Tacklin's map. To further increase their movement rate, Ilyena, who was the most encumbered, rode Bella to avoid slowing the party down. Additionally, Yolanda attempted to sell her shortbow, quiver, arrows, and silver-tipped arrows, but could not find an interested buyer in the limited time she had available in Alabast. So she cut her losses and donated them, along with several days of her rations, to the local priests to lighten her load. Following these activities, Lunadane 8 Felmont arrived, the day of the half moon, and the party set out before dawn to reach the ruined palace of Evendur once again. They managed to navigate the woods without becoming lost, and they didn't bump into anything unexpected. As a result, they arrived back at the palace on schedule, late in the afternoon. You'll notice there is quite a lot going on here regarding their business outside the adventure location. I'll break some of this stuff down a little to explain how these events unfolded. I tend to draw up worksheets for different situations within my campaign. I've already discussed my adventure journal. This is for keeping track of events during an adventure. I also have a downtime worksheet for recording events between adventures. All this bookkeeping is to keep the timekeeping accurate, but it serves other purposes as well. As I said previously, timekeeping is the foundation to which we can attach the procedures, and from the procedures arises situations. The situations give way to meaningful choices, and through these choices, the story emerges. So what procedures do I have in place for downtime? I have a few, and they're based on common problems adventurers will face when reaching a settlement. The most basic of these problems are somewhere to rest and recuperate, somewhere to buy and sell things, somewhere to attract retainers or gather information, and so on. In a pre-written adventure, it's quite common to get some information pertaining to nearby settlements, so the options available will depend on this information. However, if this information is not available, or it is incomplete, then I'd highly recommend the AD&D World Builder's Handbook as an invaluable source for filling in these gaps. The book was published in 1996 and written by Richard Baker. The City and Provinces section has some great tables for randomly determining what businesses exist in a settlement, and this is dependent on its population. The procedure I follow between adventures is roughly as follows. First, I determine recovery time required, if any is needed. The BECMI rules tell us that each day of full rest restores 1d3 hit points. So I keep a campaign tracker to track the overall campaign time. No hit points will be recovered on the first full day of rest. 1d3 hit points will be recovered per day after the first full day of rest. And once recovery is made, the downtime activities can take place in the current settlement. For buying, banking, selling and exchanging, economical information regarding commerce for the campaign setting or adventure setting should be checked for any special circumstances that might affect availability and prices of certain goods. Selling of mundane adventuring equipment is not mentioned in the core BECMI D&D rules, but as an optional rule you could allow the sale of 1/5 an item's current market price, excluding mundane items of food, which if no longer desired could be discarded or perhaps donated to the local church, temple or the like. recruiting retainers is a pretty complex process, but I have something in place that does require a fair bit of mathematics. I actually covered this in detail on my YouTube channel at Solo Dungeon Crawler. The video in question is session 5 of my Castle of the Quest playlist. So if you're interested, in a nutshell, I customised the rules in the AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide. The success of the recruitment campaign is heavily dependent on the amount of money put in and the population of the given area. A few rolls need to be made and a few calculations. So with the downtime out of the way, the party arrived back at the ruined palace. And as before, they left their mule Bella stabled in the entrance hall, and they approached the inner door that leads into the throne room. It's 4 p.m. and a new adventure is about to begin. So we are back at turn 1, round 1. So that's all I have time to cover today. Please feel free to let me know if you go on my YouTube channel, there's a community page on there. You can let me know on there if this works for you. You can let me know in the YouTube comments. This podcast episode will be uploaded on my YouTube channel, as well as being available on the various podcatchers. So if you want to put a direct comment on the video, then go for it. Let me know how this feels. Did you enjoy this format? Is there anything you'd like to suggest going forward? Let me know. Or alternatively, if you'd like to email solodungeoncrawler@gmail.com. And feel free to let me know in the comments, in the review comments on the podcast app that you're using as well. Feel free to rate the podcast however you see fit. And join me next time to find out what happens next. So thanks for listening. And as always, I will see you next session. Hopefully in less than a year's time this time. Hopefully in 1 or 2 weeks' time. But we'll see. We'll see how I get on as far as how often I post up these. But I dare say that it will be more regular than it has been. Aiming for probably every 2 or 3 weeks. But it could be more frequent. As this is audio only, it's a little bit easier for me to record. So we'll just have to wait and see. So I'll speak to you soon. Have a lovely week.